What's good, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squid, back in this video. Alright, so we're going to take a look at some cool tech cards with the ban list actually dropping today. I figured out there were actually some really cool stuff that you guys actually have to know about. You know, there are a lot of changes. It's a crazy list. Also, I figured out my sound quality was really bad. I'm supposed to hold my mic, I think, up to my mouth. It was a little further before, so that makes things a little better. Without further ado, let's just dive right in. So starting at the top, Nemesis Corridor. Yep, this is one of the cards that I think a lot of people already realized are pretty good because it has spiked up in price on TCG Player. Why? Well, this happens to be a Thunder effect monster that actually triggers in the hand, and thanks to Thunder Dragon Colossus being unbanned, this is a card that says it must be fusion summoned, or better yet, special summoned during the turn a Thunder monster's effect was activated in the hand by attributing a Thunder effect non-fusion monster you control. And in the case of Nemesis Corridor, why is this card good? Well, he has an effect that says you can target one of your banished monsters, special summon this card from your hand as an ignition effect, and if you do, shuffle that target into the deck. So yes, this does activate in our hand, and the minute that we summon it to the field, we fulfilled the conditions, so it can then be tributed off immediately for a free Thunder Dragon Colossus. And the other thing you have to note is that Nemesis Corridor actually has 600 defense, which means it's searchable off a certain extra deck synchro monster, Cupid Pitch. This card says if this synchro summoned monster is sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, he happens to be a tuner, by the way, you inflict damage to your opponent, and then you can add one level 8 or lower monster with 600 defense exactly from your deck to your hand, which means Corridor will be searchable anytime that you can actually go into Cupid Pitch. That's just insane. So yeah, guys, this card has a lot of potential. And to add some salt to the potential wound, Arch Nemesis Protos just got unbanned. This is one of the most broken cards in the ban list, honestly, because it has a very blanket-like effect, a lot like how Shockmaster operated. This card says you basically declare an attribute of a monster in the field, destroy all monsters on the field with that attribute. Also, until the end of the next turn, neither player can actually special summon of that attribute. So that means what? Well, if you call Dark, you can obviously call Dark, and then that means cards like the Black Witch is not going to be able to be summoned, cards like the Relinquished Anima is not going to be able to be summoned, and cards like Dark, the Dark Charmer will not be able to be summoned. So this actually puts a lot of pressure on Snake Eyes as is, honestly, especially because you're cutting off literally half of their starters in the form of Black Witch. And the fact that these cards can combine very well when they're bridged together with another Nemesis card, Nemesis Flag, who allows you to actually once per turn search for any Nemesis monster from your deck to your hand. So in the right deck, this is potentially a splashable engine where you can play multiple Nemesis Flags, and then from there, you can immediately Rhoda for either a Nemesis Corridor for a free Thunder Dragon Colossus, or in the right deck, make a Arch Nemesis Protos, get that set up, call an attribute. If you can somehow get a fire monster onto the table, for example, Nemesis Flag, having to be a fire monster, then you just call fire, and boom, Snake Eyes is just done. Fire Kings, no Snake Eyes are being special summoned for the rest of the turn. So yeah, this is a really powerful card, and I think people have realized that both Flag and Corridor are very powerful cards that you should pick up and potentially try to splash in the right deck to lock down a lot of decks in the format. I mean, you can also call Dark. There are a lot of decks like Branded. You know, you're going to shut them down, right? So, guys, whether you like it or not, these cards are here to stay, now the Colossus is back. Moving on, we know that Borreload Savage Dragon, Baron de Fleur, both got banned. I mean, honestly, I'm really happy about it. These Omni Negates were very degenerate. So what do we fill the void with? Well, we have a couple of options here. There are only so many Omni Negates in the extra deck. One of them happens to be Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Yes, as you guys can see, things are starting to get a little watered down once Savage Dragon and Baron de Fleur get banned, because Synchro Dragon only takes care of monster effects, but it's still special summonable off of ULTIMAYA TZOLKIN in the right deck, something like a Tenpai Dragon. All you have to do is have one tuner monster and a non-tuner monster that equals both of their levels, and then you make ULTIMAYA TZOLKIN, set a card, boom, you get a free Synchro Dragon protecting you from Nibiru, and also negating monster effects once per turn. Very powerful. There's also another Synchro monster called F.A. Dawn Dragster, who is the spell and trap negation equivalent of the actual Synchro Dragon. Instead, this negates spells and traps. It's just a generic level 7 monster that can easily be made in a lot of Synchro decks. So if you guys are a Synchro-based player, you know, you have to modulate your levels a little bit to accommodate either making TZOLKIN or making Dawn Dragster for your alternatives. Moving on, yes, Summon Limit finally got banned. Thank goodness. This card was degenerate as heck. Like, if you guys have been across the table from a summon limit, you already know how it feels. I'm sure everyone wants this card banned. If you don't, you're probably crazy. But I'm glad it's banned. So what do we do now? We have to play alternatives. Well, this was a premier go first side card in a lot of decks. So we do still have one copy of Anti-Spell Fragrance, which I think is pretty good. There are a lot of spell-based things that have been added to the card pool, like Engage, a lot of board breakers, a lot of new toys. This card is still at 1, so this could be a card that replaces Summon Limit. And then we also have Dimensional Barrier, which happens to be very formidable this upcoming format because it deals with a lot of things. You can call Fusion against decks like Branded, against random Thunder Dragon, maybe Rogue decks that are trying to summon out Colossus. We can call Rituals against Voiceless Voice. We can call Synchros against random Rogue decks like Sword Soul, or better yet, the Tenpai Dragons. This is already dealing with literally the next 3 best decks after Fire King and Snake Eyes. And there are so many rogue decks that make use of Xyz as well that Dimensional Barrier just accommodates and does everything for you. It's such an auto win card that you can flip immediately. So I think this might be another card that people are going to try and replace their summon limits with. Another generic card you can actually consider is Deck Lockdown. I see this making sales on TCG Player. People have realized Deck Lockdown is actually one of those cards that has just been around, but has not especially been popular because there's always traditionally been floodgates that are stronger, like Summon Limit, like the Anti-Spell Fragrance that were at 3, which means no one wanted to play this card. But now, it's a different story. Summon Limit is banned officially. Anti-Spell is at 1. We don't have a lot of good generic floodgates left over in the game, but like Deck Lockdown happens to be one of those. It says neither player can add cards from their deck to their hand, and monsters cannot be special summoned from the main deck. So that's a no-brainer. It doesn't matter if this card's destroyed in 2 turns. The duel's going to be over by then, right? So this could be another card that you guys should pick up if you want to fill that void for going first specifically. Okay, what else got banned? Well, Linkuriboh happened to have gotten banned. So what are your alternatives here? I'm sure everyone already knows, but more or less you have like maybe 1 or 2. You have SALAMANGREAT ALMIRAJ, who happens to be a fire, unfortunately, so you cannot actually go off into your dark plays, which makes it a little worse. But of course, then the other one that people are jumping to is Relinquished ANIMA. Now, bear in mind that Relinquished ANIMA has some sizey drawbacks compared to Linkuriboh. Besides the fact that it cannot actually come back over and over in your graveyard as a dark monster, and the fact that he also can dodge targeting interruption like Impermanent Mailer, is the fact that Relinquished ANIMA actually points up. That can actually hurt because you're not going to be able to link summon beneath Relinquished ANIMA like you could for Linkuriboh. Instead, you actually have to link off the Relinquished ANIMA or find some way to get this off of the table, which is where SALAMANGREAT ALMIRAJ might actually come in handy for the right deck. But in Snake Eyes, obviously, it's not really much of an option because you're not going to be able to use the Poplar that you special summon off of Snake Eyes Ash for ALMIRAJ. It has to be a normal summon monster. But again, this is just another option for the deck that actually wants to normal summon a Link 1 and then use it off as fodder, right? So you guys have your options there. Okay, now let's talk about some cards that have come back. Well, Chicken Game has officially come back, right? So what does that mean? Well, this is actually a really fun toy. It's one of the best generic field spells in the history of the game, having the Upstart Goblin effect to instantly replace itself, which is a type of card quality that you want when you throw it into a main deck, right? If you chuck something into a main deck, it should ideally be live going first and going second, which is why Chicken Game kind of fills that void that we previously did not have. So now in the right deck, if you're playing something like an Ancient Fairy Dragon, well, that means you can now search for Chicken Game instead of playing bad field spell cards that you didn't normally want to play to accommodate Ancient Fairy Dragon. And better yet, I think cards like Set Rotation might see more play because this card says set 2 field spells with different names from your deck, 1 on each side. And traditionally, we just did not have a secondary field spell that was good enough to justify playing Set Rotation. But now this means we have another copy of Terraforming as long as you accommodate by placing Chicken Game into your main deck, which is not much of a drawback because it's just an Upstart Goblin. If we happen to hard draw it, it's no longer a brick. Engage has officially come back to 3. I never thought I would see the day, but somehow we are here. Now, Engage, the quality between 3 and 2 is a big difference, okay? This now officially means Engage can be splashed again in a lot of decks. You guys remember back in the day, Sky Striker Orcust was a thing? Well, now Sky Striker Engage almost feels like the premium board wiper card for a board wiper deck because you have so many options. Obviously, you have Widow Anchor, which is a disruption going first or second. You have cards like Afterburners, which is also very powerful, being able to trade off for 2 cards depending on how many spells you have in your graveyard. You can draw multiple cards off Engage. And of course, Hornet Drones allows you to get an instant Link 2 for free. How it works is you obviously play Engage, add Hornet Drones, go to Kagari. Kagari adds back the drones. And now you have a plethora of access to a lot of Link 2s, including all of the Charmers. Kagari Kagari and Tahita is like the main thing, right? But you also have the other Sky Striker attributes that you can link Kagari into, and then from there activate Hornet drones and go off into like a the Wind Charmer a area, or maybe something like an Asa, and then from there you can just link climb into a Celine, and you're off to the races. Like, guys, this is a lot of potential actually for what one card coming back to 3 can do for a lot of decks out there, and I think this is the type of card that you could consider splashing into the right board breaker deck, maybe going second. This is an option. Being able to draw a potential card is just insane. It's a pot of greed on crack. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this card works in the metagame, but I definitely think it will be relevant at some point in time in the future. Maybe not in pure Sky Striker, just like in the splashable right deck. Another card that came to 3, which kind of blew my mind, was SPEEDROID TERRORTOP. This card has not been at 3 for a long time. And, you know, it's actually a good thing we don't have MX Saber Invoker, because this card might actually be really powerful if we had it back at 1. So thank goodness that's banned. Now, the drawback with 3 TERRORTOP is, again, you do have to play a brick in the form of SPEEDROID Takum Tombor. It doesn't feel good to draw. But what about TERRORTOP on its own? We have a couple of cool things we can do that I realized. First and foremost, the classic Totem Bird being an Omni Negate for spells and traps is always a good thing. You know, you're using a free card that doesn't take up your normal summon. Now, on the flip side, to accommodate Nibiru, there is another rank 3 that you can play, and that's none other than number 75, Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, who says when an opponent's monster activates effect, you detach 2 materials, and the activated effect instead becomes both players draw a card. So now you have the option to go into Bamboozling Gossip Shadow to protect against hand traps, or to go into Totem Board for your end board. So there are a lot of options with SPEEDROID that I think is really, really cool. But something else that's really cool with the new Goblin support is actually you can go off into Goblin Biker Big Gabonga, who's a generic Xyz Link 3, and he says you can actually add a Goblin monster from your deck to your hand when he's Xyz summoned. Yes, there are a plethora of new Goblin support, including Goblin Biker Doug Charter, who says if this card's in your hand, you can detach an Xyz material from either side of the field, and if you do special summon this card gets special summoned, and then he has a trigger effect that says if he's specialed, you can add a Goblin Biker spell trap from your deck to your hand. There's a Goblin Biker spell trap that is Goblin Biker Grand Entrance that allows you to add a Goblin monster from your deck to your hand. Then you can apply the following effect: detach an Xyz material from a monster on either field, and if you do, special summon a level 4 or lower Goblin monster from your hand, aka the one that you searched. So depending on what you're searching, there are options. If we search for Goblin Biker Clatter Sploder, this card instantly gets special summoned for free. We have not yet used our normal summon, and we already have 3 bodies on the field thanks to SPEEDROID TERRORTOP. We have the 2 goblins that we searched alongside the Big Gabonga, so now we're off to the races. The fact that these guys are different attributes, we can actually use Clatter Sploder to make a princess if you want to, even. You know, it could be any other goblin as well. There are a bunch of other goblins in the actual game, and then princess can actually bring back Sploder and go off into like an Abloil or a Hida. So there are a lot of plays available with the SPEEDROID TERRORTOP that was previously not available back when it was at 3, you know, like 7 years ago in Zoo format. Wow, I literally cannot remember the last time I special summoned a TERRORTOP, but it did feel good when you were able to resolve this card. Now, there are also some other cool goblins in the game, so guys, do a search and do your due diligence on Dueling Book. There are some cool ones, including Memento Land Goblin, who allows you to actually bridge off into the full Memento Land combo, which I've actually been playing around with, so I'm going to make like a video about this, but it's really, really cool what the capabilities of TERRORTOP are in the current modern game now that a lot of rank 3s are very, very powerful. Okay, and last but not least is Mali. I cannot believe this card is at 3. I would never thought I would see the day that it came back to 3. But you know, Sold is gone, so whatever. Now hero players in Latin America are probably celebrating because this card is now insane with Denier. You can have up to 4 bodies instead of the previously only available 3. And if you play something like a Fusion Destiny, which is probably better in a pure hero deck, you send both, you banish the Mali, summon out Mali, you can link off, do whatever, shenanigans, summon the other Mali, Denier back the other Mali that's banished, and then your third Mali becomes like another Mali. So there are a lot of cool plays with this. I just thought this was a bit of an honorable mention, how it works very well with Fusion Destiny, even though the card is kind of you know, Power Crept, Destiny Hero, Phoenix Enforcer is not that good anymore. But there are cool things that you can do just with Mali as an extender in the right deck that I thought it was worth mentioning as an honorable mention. You know, some tier decks used to play Mali plus Denier. Now you have your options. So yeah, that's about all I had for this video. What do you guys think? Are there any cool tech cards that you guys are considering? Let us know in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, other than that, we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Bye-bye.